Hey y'all, this is episode number 28, a special Saturday episode, though I didn't put one out on Monday, so it kind of works. This will be this week's episode. I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein's death and the implications there, and kind of just generally what that may mean and why it was surprising to nobody. So if you are in the Austin area, looking to have your TV mounted on the wall, looking to upgrade your sound system, looking to do anything with your entertainment system, reach out to Bat City TV. Let them know that the Sovereign Individual podcast sent you, and you will receive a discount there. And thank you once again to Flavor Aid for creating the intro music you are about to hear. Their EP All My Life is available on Spotify and wherever you listen to music, so make sure to check that out. And please enjoy this episode. What's up, y'all? This is the Sovereign Individual Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Guerra, and thank you so much for joining me again today. I really do appreciate it. And if you're liking what you're hearing so far, please subscribe, rate, and review the show, and share it with anybody that you think might be interested in giving this a listen. Okay, so let's jump right in. This is a special episode, obviously. I don't normally record on Saturdays, but this needed to be talked about. And I wanted to get it talked about, get this episode out before the media tries to bury this story, and before, hopefully, we don't forget about this. Hopefully this isn't something that society and the American public forgets about, and, you know, a week later, nobody's even talking about it again. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein is dead by suicide, and I'm using air quotes when I say that. So this is surprising to nobody. I believe I even said in the episode that I did on this when he was arrested and everything, and the story kind of originally broke, that him being suicided was a distinct possibility, and it's now happened. Excuse me. 2 weeks ago, I believe, or right about 2 weeks, it was on July 24th that he attempted to commit suicide. So that would have been a Wednesday 2 weeks ago. So he was already, he had already made the attempt, which again, I was like, oh, quote unquote suicide attempt. What's been fascinating to watch, again, and this is going to be for the first time in a long time an episode where I'm just kind of freewheeling it, and I don't have any notes written down, and I don't have anything specific, specific outline for where this is going to be. It's going to be more of a stream of consciousness about what's going on, and, I know in my head the few kind of things that I want to hit on. But it's just very interesting that this has been a almost uniting type event from what I'm seeing on like Twitter and social media. It is everybody from every corner of the political spectrum is calling bullshit on this, and everybody is saying, okay, so they killed him. This is a definite, I mean, can you still call it a conspiracy theory if he's dead? If the thing is actually carried out? If, like, those of us who have been talking about it and been saying, like, there's going to be a distinct chance that this gentleman doesn't ever make it to trial because he's going to die. Because they're and that's an interesting thing, too, especially when you're talking about suicide, because, people may say, well, he was going to be facing life in prison, and he may have just wanted to end it before that happens. And that's, I mean, a fair argument to make. And it's not one that's like out of left field, and it would make sense. But also, I mean, he had the ability, he had so much leverage in regards to what he would have been able to reveal, who he would have been able to roll on, and how many other individuals, high-powered individuals, he would have been able to implicate in this. So there's a distinct possibility that he was going to serve significantly reduced amount of time in prison, just based off of what he knew and what he could expose and the deal that he would have been able to make. So that's kind of why the whole idea of him committing suicide doesn't hold a whole lot of weight. But I mean, one of two things happened. Either he was suicided on purpose, or they let him commit suicide. Maybe there's, it's real easy. These are the types of the types of individuals we're talking about, and the types of people that could have been implicated in this, and the power that they have. It's very easy to make a threat, and say that if he does not commit suicide, so and so loved ones are going to be, killed or tortured or whatever, and be able to encourage him to do so. Now, what's been interesting about this is, so he, like I said, there was the attempt 2 weeks ago where they found him in his cell and he had attempted suicide, and he was able to commit suicide, quote unquote. And the reports are now coming out that he was not on suicide watch at the prison. We're 2 weeks removed from him attempting to take his own life, and he's not on suicide watch. And this type of individual and this type of case, this person isn't under constant surveillance. We're supposed to believe that when they tell us something like that. So again, what you're talking about here is either he was not actually on suicide watch so that he would be able to do it. So they were, the facility was told to do that so that he would have the opportunity to kill himself. Or they were aware and he was on suicide watch and they still let it happen. And this is still, it's a breaking story. It broke this morning and there's still a lot coming out about it. I've seen reports that there's a malfunction with the cameras there in his cell, because it's this particular prison where he's being kept in New York has a ton of CCTVs there. So, it's there's cameras in the rooms themselves, I believe, or at least in the rooms where he was being kept. So, again, not shocking. And if this whole, the camera malfunctioned, it's just where it is. It's one of those things where you are seeing from across the political spectrum, all over it, everybody's just saying, no, this stinks. All of this stinks. This is all crap. He had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeting out that we need answers as to how this happened, and culture responds to her by saying good luck. Those are fairly polar opposite type people, and it's kind of one of those things too. There's an interesting thing that the FBI put out recently, that conspiracy theorists are considered to be threats, and that they're going to start monitoring people who adhere or espouse conspiracy theories, on social media and stuff like that. Which is, I've already accepted I'm probably on a few government lists just by the things that I say on Twitter and social media, and the fact that I've got this podcast and the things that I say on that. I'm sure that there's, it's not like I'm obviously not on a no-fly list or some sort of serious threat type list, but I'm sure there are lists kept of those who are anti-government or hypercritical of the government and whatnot. And so, just throw me on that list too with the conspiracy theories. And it's just, it's interesting to see everybody piling onto this and saying that it's crap. Rudy Giuliani's tweeting out about it, and how could this have been allowed to happen? How was he able to do this, especially so soon after having attempted to do it already? Are we really not watching him? Excuse me, I think allergies are kind of acting up today. My throat's a little scratchy. So, okay, so where are we at? Where does this leave us? unfortunately, most of his secrets are going to die with him. The court documents from his previous trial literally just got unsealed yesterday. So again, the timing of this is very interesting as well. You have the documents unsealed yesterday. This morning, Epstein is found dead, having committed suicide. There's varying reports of when they found him. There's reports that 3:30 a.m. is when they found him and took him to the hospital. There's conflicting that says it wasn't until 7:30 that somebody went in and saw him, and then he was taken to the hospital. Again, apparently there was a malfunction with the camera for his room. So very convenient with all of these things, and very convenient. And there's going to remain to be a cloud of confusion over this, and they're going to want to keep it that way. I don't suspect that there'll be much of an investigation. If there is one, they're probably going to find that nobody was at fault, that it was just an accident. The guards, they couldn't help that the camera malfunctioned, and he wasn't on suicide watch, so there wasn't any reason for them to go in and check on him. But it is just kind of like they take stuff. Like, take, like, shoelaces and belts and stuff when you get arrested for, like, minor stuff. And you're telling me, like, if it's kind of high security prison, they're not going to be super attentive. And again, he just, like, the guy tried it. I believe the attempt on the 24th was by hanging as well, which is how apparently he did it this time. Excuse me, sorry about this throat thing. And having to keep continuing to cough. Sorry. So, it's, again, just kind of a glimpse and a view into where this system is at that we're currently a part of. Like, how this entity, the state, operates. And how delegitimate it is in a lot of ways, and how this type of thing can happen, and how we're watching it happen. And the scariest part, or the most unnerving part about it, is that they believe that they can just get away with it. And by and large, they're going to be able to get away with it. I don't suspect anything to come of an investigation. I don't expect anybody to answer for what occurred. And they're going to just move on, and there's going to be something else that happens that they're going to get everybody talking about, and then people are just going to forget about this. Which sucks. Which sucks a lot. Because this is definitely something that we as a society need to be more aware of, that we deserved answers for on this. And so that's another thing. I mean, it's just, yeah. Because it's if you were a prosecutor who's bringing this case against him, wouldn't you want to ensure that there was no way for him to do this to not stand trial? Wouldn't you want... I mean, yeah. So again, it's just like, oh yeah, really, he committed suicide. Sure, whatever. But what has been fascinating to watch, like I said on Twitter, everybody's calling crap on it, but then also... What's been trending on Twitter, come on Eric, we can speak correctly, has been very interesting. So you've had Epstein, obviously, is trending. Clinton body count, Trump body count. So I've never really seen the Trump body count one before. I'm sure that's because, again, seems to be a concentrated effort by the state in order to have this happen. So the Clinton body count is like a pretty known one. The fact that a lot of people who are close to the Clintons or have connections to the Clintons tend to die most of the time by suicide. Again, that's kind of a suicide in quotes. You don't really know. Arkansas is trending, which is again of that same thing when it comes to the Clinton body count, and like Arkansas is referring to Arkansas when the Clintons were holding power there, and how they would, political opponents and, enemies of the Clintons would no longer be problems, I guess is the best way to put it. And again, the suicide thing tends to be the manner in which a lot of people who are in the sphere of the Clintons tend to die. So that's what that specifically. Again, I'm not saying necessarily one way or the other whether I'm buying into that. There's a whole deep dive that we could do on an episode later. It may just, again, it may just be, I don't think it's like a House of Cards thing where they're like actually the ones committing anything, but they may be, they may use their influence to help, that kind of thing. But that's what Arcanicide is about. That's in relation to the Clinton body count and the types of people that tend to die around them and the way in which they tend to die around them. So those have been trending on Twitter. I believe, who else was it? There was Vince Foster was trending, hashtag Vince Foster, which is another one of those people who were close to the Clintons that committed suicide. There was a lot of weirdness about his death. Again, not something I want to do a super deep dive into at the moment, but it's one of those where it's ruled a suicide, but it doesn't seem to be the case. It was a weird one. Yeah. There was a good tweet about how this is like similar to Gary Webb, who uncovered the connection between the CIA and the crack cocaine epidemic, and how the CIA was flooding drugs into the American market in order to purchase weapons to send to the Contras, and just that whole scandal. And then lo and behold, Gary Webb is ruled to have committed suicide with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. And that was ruled as suicide. So things like that have been trending, which is encouraging to see, because as somebody who's hypercritical of the state, as somebody who doesn't believe in the validity and the power of the state, and who doesn't think that, I believe we're reaching a point with technology and society and civilization where we can start moving beyond, and there's solutions to these things that the government doesn't need to exist for anymore. But when you see, and again, I recognize I'm in a very small minority by that. But for me, what started this all is just like I started seeing the hypocrisy of the state, and just how many different ways it's wrong, and how many different things that it allows itself to do that nobody else would be able to get away with doing, kind of like I talked about in the taxation episode. Like, nobody else, you could not do that as a human being to another human being, and without it being considered illegal. But when the state does it, it's okay. And so just, you kind of start seeing these things, and it starts to, just make you go, well, this whole system's pretty screwed up. This whole system's just kind of out of whack, and just whack in general, I guess would be a good way of putting it. And so when I see a bunch of these types of things trending, it gives me at least a little bit of, I guess, optimism in the fact that at least more and more people are seeing some of the hypocrisy. I'm not saying that they're going to become anarcho-capitalists tomorrow, or even at any point in their lives, but the more and more people that start to see the illegitimacy of this system, and the hypocrisy of this system, and the hypocrisy of the state, and that you've got these individuals and these actors. And again, I mean, it's not even just like the Clintons and the Bushes and the Trumps. There's the very powerful, elite, rich that are outside of the spotlight, that are influencing a lot of these things and making a lot of things happen. You got the military-industrial complex that's doing a ton of these things, and I'm sure has their hands in a bunch of these events, and are conspiring to make certain things come to fruition so that they can keep their power, and they can keep things going on, and they can continue to maintain the status quo, which is at the moment never-ending war that they're being able to profit off of. But seeing things like this trend gives me hope that at least people are becoming more and more aware of it. Maybe people who weren't aware of it are like being exposed to it, and something that they can explore for themselves and start seeing this. And so more and more people at least are going, no, this is crap. And then especially with this, where everybody is calling foul on this from across this political spectrum. Every single corner of the political spectrum is calling this exactly what it is, a load of crap. That's encouraging as well, because, and that was one of the things whenever Trump was voted in that gave me hope, and that I was hoping that we were going to be able to find some common ground with the left. One, thinking that the anti-war left would come back, which is unfortunate that they're pretty much gone forever at this point. But two, that maybe because a character like Trump had gotten elected, who there are folks that refer to as literally Hitler, and they believe that, we should be reevaluating this system. We should be reevaluating the manner in which this occurs, like the manner in which we basically had it come down to two options, like the two worst options in American history, probably. I mean, I don't know for sure, but there's those are pretty bad ones. The manner in which how much power is like centralized in this position of the U.S. presidents, in the executive branch, how much power exists there. Because if there's such a fear of somebody like Trump getting elected into that position, then my hope and my belief was like, well, maybe we can start having that conversation of, what do we do to rein this in? What do we do to remove that amount of power and to decentralize it again, and to get it back to where one single person wouldn't be able to have this much influence? There's no reason a person living in Washington, D.C. should be able to have that much of an influence on the lives of 330 million people in the United States, and not to mention billions around the globe that can be potentially influenced by decision making there. We're in a trade war with China right now, which is idiotic, and you've got a billion people there that can has the possibility of affecting. And then that's just not even just China. That's the entire region. You've got China bordering India, which has another billion people. So it's just, excuse me. So when I see stuff like this trending, it gives me hope that at least maybe people are starting to question the system as it stands right now. And again, I'm not saying all or even most or even some of them are going to become anarcho-capitalists, but at least maybe they can agree that, hey, where it's at and where we're continuing to head is the wrong direction. Let's start turning this thing around. Let's start getting the power of the state back, reining it in within at least, the Constitution, and starting to bring this power back and readjusting how this all goes down, and just taking a long, serious look at the system and at our society and saying, okay, what can we start doing to legitimately work to fix this and to legitimately work to make this better? So that's kind of, something that I hope is a sign of what we're seeing when things like this are trending. And again, excuse me, like I said, Twitter's a horrible manner in which to kind of track this sort of thing. It's a small portion of the population that is even on Twitter, and an even smaller portion of the folks that are on Twitter that are actually like actively tweeting and sending a lot of this stuff out. So, but it's a start, is my main point. And nobody in the media is calling this suspect, or at least nobody that I've seen yet. I guess Joe Scarborough mentioned something about Russia, which is, of course, Joe Scarborough did, because he's an idiot. Excuse me. But that's where we stand right now. We had a surprising to absolutely no one that this occurred and that this went down the way that it did. And again, don't allow this story to be buried. I will keep updated just going on it. Anything that comes up that happens, I will make sure to get out. But this is just, it sucks. It sucks to know that it was going to happen. Like, I didn't feel vindicated when I read that. Like, oh, yep, see, I told y'all I was right. I was like, damn it. They got him. I was like, damn it. That sucks. That really sucks. We had a chance to maybe get some answers. We had a chance to maybe have horrible, despicable, loathsome human beings suffer and pay the consequence for what they did. And now we're not going to get that. It's not a good thing. It's especially not, I don't know that anybody would wake up and read that and think, oh, good. That's what should happen. He's a horrible person. And it can't, I agree. I'm not saying that he deserves to be alive because, it's of anything other than the fact that we as a society and we as a country deserved to know who else was involved in this with him, exactly who else was involved in this, how deep it went, and make all of them answer for that. We deserved that. And it's very unfortunate that we're not going to get to see that happen. And it sucks. It really sucks. So this is kind of moved up my plan. I was going to do the 7-day different atrocities committed by the United States government. I was going to do that not this upcoming week, but the week after. But I'm going to move it up and do it this week instead. Because this is just another one of those things where I'm like, no, I'm not surprised by this at all. This is what the state does. This is their MO. This is what powerful people do when they are able to use an entity like the state to wield that power without really any check or balance on them. As much as we like to say that those things exist, to the most powerful and the most elite, they don't. There are no checks and balances. So that'll be coming. I'm going to, I think, just start with kind of the most, I guess, how do I want to word this? Most believable upon first hearing it. Like if somebody were to tell you, hey, this thing happened that the government did, excuse me, you would go, okay, I could see that. You wouldn't just immediately be like, no way, they wouldn't do that. That's impossible. You'd be like, okay, yeah, that I could see that. If you were to, show me the evidence, I would believe that. That doesn't surprise me a whole lot. And then the last day will be one where it's just like, dude, there's no way. Like if I tell you about it, you go, there's no way. That's not true. That can't be true. They wouldn't do that. So that's going to be kind of the way that it goes. Just gets increasingly more outrageous and unbelievable and unfathomable. But again, these are just the things that we know about that I'm going to be covering. And it's not even all of them. I'm just going to pick 7 that kind of show, a good spread of how crazy and out of control these types of things can be. So that'll be starting on Monday. Will be the first one of those. We'll get that going. But again, I didn't do an episode this Monday. I had a lot with work going on, so I wasn't able to do that. But you're getting a episode this week, I guess, so that works. And then there'll be 7 next week. So that'll be hopefully very educational, hopefully eye-opening, and hopefully something that will help. Again, I'm not expecting anybody to fall into my line of thinking overnight or to fully get on board, but maybe, again, just kind of giving a background into where these thoughts and beliefs come from and why I feel the way that I feel about the state as I dive into some of these things. Hopefully that gives a little more credence to it and you can understand it a little better and go, even if I don't completely agree with where he has moved to, I can understand how he got there, and I can understand how these things happening that we know about have led to that. So thanks again for listening. Again, this sucks. It really does suck. I was really hoping that we were gonna get to see this play out. But again, I will keep y'all posted on any further updates that occur with this story. So just be vigilant, be aware that this is the type of stuff that goes on. Nobody's really surprised, which is kind of a nice thing to see, at least on social media. So, well, that's it. You are a sovereign individual. I'm a sovereign individual. So is every single one of his victims that deserve to get justice, and to see all of those pieces of filth who participated in this answer for doing that. And now they don't get to. And that's the worst part of all of it. Thanks, y'all.